Okay, welcome everybody. So today we're going to be talking about a holistic approach to understanding the body. And the essence of a holistic approach is that we look at all aspects. So not just looking at things in isolation, but we're looking how does everything work together and how does everything else affect everything else. Okay, so when it comes to holistic health, we're looking at all elements of the human experience. So we're looking at the physical side, the mental, the emotional side, and the spiritual side. So we're not just these physical beings that are wandering around, bound by the laws of the earth, although we are. There's much more to us than just the physical. So we're going to look at and understand how each part of us and our experience affects all other areas. So a really nice analogy for this is the analogy of a spider web. You can't touch one bit of the web without affecting every other part. And we'll break this down a little bit more as we go on. So one other way to think of holistic health, or another way of breaking it down, is the four quadrants. So if you imagine you've just got a page split into four equal parts, you can describe these as the four quadrants. So the personal interior is inside of you. So how you feel, how you think, how you emote, all the stuff on the inside of you, the unseen stuff. Personal exterior would be your physical body, so your personal exterior. The collective interior could be collective consciousness. So the idea that we have cultural norms, we have societal norms, we have things that we're expected to do. These are examples of collective interior. And then the collective exterior could be what the world looks like from a physical point of view. So nature's way does teach us, and there is this inherent wisdom that is within nature and within the body. So we have to kind of look back to that stuff to start to get an idea of how do we get ourselves back in balance. Nature can teach us so much. When we think about health challenges are a means of learning more about ourselves and a means of evolving. So although you may have a bit of a health challenge or a bit of a struggle or a physical injury, and you view it as a real negative, if we flip the coin on that, we can say to ourselves, what is this situation teaching me about myself? What can I learn from this situation? How can I grow from this situation? So we can look at health challenges as a means of evolving. All right, so we're just going to quickly break down some holistic health principles. So first one, pretty basic, pretty standard in a way, it's nutrition. There's 1,001 diet books out there in the world, but the idea of nutrition is eating what works for you. So what works for you is going to be very different to what works for someone else. And what works for you right now or today or in this particular meal that you're eating, it might not be what your body needs the next meal or the next meal or the next day. So it's about tuning in, that real fine tuning and getting to know what does your body want? What is your body craving? And by following sort of diet crazes, this is going to sound funny, but by following these diet crazes, and a lot of people do that, it's actually a means of getting to know our bodies. So if we eat a lot of meat and we eat tons and tons of meat, how do we feel? We might feel okay for a little while, but then if we stop training as hard, maybe we'll feel a little bit bogged down, a little bit heavy. Same thing with like a vegetarian type approach. If we're eating a vegetarian-based approach, we might start to feel really light and quite energetic. But then when it comes to periods of higher stress or periods of more intense workouts or something like that, or you want to do some more muscle building type work, then you're probably going to need a bit more flesh food to really lay down some muscle mass on your frame. So nutrition. The other thing we can think about in terms of nutrition is how is the food grown and raised? Where did it come from? Is it local? Use of pesticides, all that sort of stuff. Hydration, pretty fundamental again. Where's our water coming from? Is it tap water? Are we utilizing a water filter? Are we, some people source their water from natural springs or that sort of stuff, and that's awesome as well. So you just got to think about how much water am I consuming? Am I under or over consuming? And also, where's it coming from? Sleep. So big magical one right here. Sleep. We all know if we don't get enough sleep, if you have one night of shit sleep, it can really affect you, the way you function, the way you can process any degree of stress, how you function mentally, emotionally that day. The ability to work out and train hard really goes downhill if we're not getting adequate sleep. So that's another really important one to consider. Breathing, this is super important because we breathe about 20,000 or so times a day. And if we're breathing from a shallow or inverted or chest breathing type pattern, you're breathing inefficiently 20,000 times in the day. So that's going to really have a huge compounding effect. Breathing's also got links to the spine because when we breathe efficiently, we actually lengthen and shorten the spine. So we get a bit of a pumping mechanism to keep the spine healthy, keep our posture good, and a whole other host of things. So thinking, and that's the idea of our utilizing our consciousness and working with our consciousness. So how are we thinking on a day-to-day basis? Are you fixed mindset or more growth mindset? Do you always see the opportunity and the potential in things, or do you always see the lack and the struggle in things? So we can really use our thinking to either put us in a more aligned direction, or we can use our thinking to kind of keep ourselves trapped and limited. And a lot of this we can work on retraining. A lot of, we pick up a lot of things from childhood, from our family, society, community, all that sort of stuff. And we may not really know that we're stuck in these patterns until we start to have some level of self-awareness. So how we think and utilize our minds is very important. And then movement as well. So movement, we can think of movement in terms of the physical body, but also we have movement of energy through our body and our emotions and all that sort of stuff as well. So are we under exercising? Are we over exercising? Are we doing strength training? Are we stretching and mobilizing the body? All these aspects of movement. Are we getting our steps in each day? So these are the general holistic health principles that we need to consider. If you don't consider these things, you're going to really be missing out. And then, as I alluded to before, we must harmonize with nature and earth for optimal health. So our health and her health, they reflect each other. So if you think about, for example, what's happening with soil damage at the moment through use of commercial, pesticides and herbicides and that sort of stuff, it actually damages and kills a lot of the microorganisms in the soil. And a parallel to that within the human body, we have all these digestive problems. So many of us have these digestive issues that are going on, microbiome issues within the gut. So that's a clear correlation as to how we need to harmonize with Earth. All right, so the idea of autonomic balance is just the idea of stress management. So life is inevitably stressful. We live in a fairly rushed society. We tend to be on the go all the time. We don't always make time for ourselves to slow down, have time for ourselves, quiet time with no distractions. So when we're in a high stress or a sympathetic state, it's okay in the short term, and our bodies are designed to be in that, and it's quite healthy. If you have, for example, some kind of joint issue, and we want to increase cortisol, that can act as a bit of a painkiller type approach in the body. So it can help us actually to manage pain, and we want to be switched on in the short term. So if you're in immediate danger, you need to be able to switch on, get the blood pumping, be able to run away from danger if you're in danger. And that's okay. The body's designed for that in the short term. But when it comes to long-term stress, that's a real issue. So when we're in a constant stress state, day after day after day, things really start to compound in a negative way. And another thing to talk about when it comes to stress, outside of what we talked about before with the foundation health principles, stress is also perception. So there's a large degree of stress. When we say we've had a stressful day, how much of it is perception? It's really dependent on the person. So this is how we're programmed, and the idea that from ages 0 to 7, this is when most of our programming occurs. So programming, again, comes from our parents, our family, our community, our schooling, all that sort of stuff. So two people could be in the exact same situation, and one finds it extremely stressful and is on the verge of a nervous meltdown, and someone could be quite comfortable. And maybe an example of this could be public speaking. Someone's very comfortable public speaking and is in their element, and then someone else is just sweating and freaking out about it. So we've got that idea of stress is perception. So how are you perceiving your stress? So we must make time to practice self-management, and a nice way of doing this can be through exercise, meditation, mindfulness. I like to do as well. I think there's huge benefit to doing that sort of stuff, but it's the idea of making time. So penciling in your diary, putting it in, allocating a time for it, making it a non-negotiable part of your day. All right, so we're going to talk about now the importance of having a goal or a dream. So this is the idea of what do you love enough to change for? Because if you're having these challenges and struggles in your life, in your health, you want to get naturally, we all, we want to be better, right? We want to have optimal health and optimal vitality. But if you don't know why you want to do it, then to make all these changes that you've got to make, it's just going to seem like more and more to put on the to-do list. So this is where having a main goal or an overarching dream that we can break down into smaller goals. This is where we can start to channel our life force and really start to align with ourselves. So if you don't know what you want, a nice exercise is identifying what your nightmare is. So you can list all the things that you don't want in your life, and then you can flip that and invert that, and then it'll start to give you some indication as to what you do want. And this is the idea that some people are motivated by heading towards a result. So they can look at a thing and they go, oh, they're really ambitious. And they go, cool, I really want to achieve this. I'm going to put all my energy and effort into it. And then some of us, we're more motivated by the opposite. So we're scared about what might happen if we don't change. So that's one way of identifying your goal or your dream, at least in the short term. And like I alluded to before, our goals show us how and where to express our life force energy. So where do you put your energy into each day? How do you allocate your time to get stuff done? If we have a clear goal for the day or for the month or for the quarter, whatever it may be, our goal is going to help us prioritize. Cool, I've got to spend this amount of hours, this amount of time working on my projects or whatever it may be each day. Also, we can talk about the idea of values. So you can pretty much talk about and set your values in all areas of life. So this might be the amount of time you spend with your family, the amount of time you spend in education, in learning more and upskilling. This might be the quality of food you eat, how you move your body, when you move your body. All that sort of stuff, when you go to sleep. So you can create values around pretty much every area of your life. And then tying into this as well is the idea of what makes us happy. So I know it's a little bit cliche saying, oh, what is it that makes you happy? What is it that lights you up? But when we really come to identify that, it really starts to propel us on our journey, and we can put a lot more energy and have a lot more energy. So sometimes we're really tired as well throughout the day because we may not have slept well, or we're eating shitty food, or we're under or over exercising, all these sorts of things. But I think another major reason why a lot of us are tired is because you're not doing enough of the stuff that actually lights you up, the stuff that really gets you going. So the idea of writing down a list of what is it that makes you happy? What do you enjoy doing? All right, I'm going to keep on diving deeper for this initial part. So what are your beliefs about life? And the reason why I'm talking about this at the moment is because your beliefs around life, fundamentally, who you are, why you're here, that really drives a lot of your behavior. These beliefs drive your behavior leads to actions, and then the actions lead to an outcome, the results that you're getting. So do you have a belief in struggle, in hard times? Life's always out to get me. Bad things happen to good people, all this sort of stuff. You view the negative side of the coin. So you're always looking at the lack, the struggle, the limitation. Or can you flip that belief and start to work in the potential and the abundance that's there for you? Can you grow and evolve and learn? And it's not necessarily growing and evolving because you don't want to be bad or you don't want to be shit at what you do, but just growing for the sake of, the way a plant grows in nature. It doesn't really have a reason for doing it. It just grows towards the sun. So it's working towards its potential. So these are two fundamental ways in which we can view life. And a lot of the time, many of us go in between. We have periods where we're stuck in the struggle, and then periods where we're really flowing quite well. So it's about identifying where you're at the moment, how much time you're spending in each, and then working with yourself to start to shift these beliefs. So the idea of why do you believe that you're here? This is a deeply spiritual question, and everyone's going to have a unique take on this, a unique view on this. But identifying why that you believe you're here, what's your reason for being, that'll help you identify any potential roadblocks you may have there. Do you believe that you'll always have disease or dysfunction? So this comes back to, again, that lack and scarcity and essentially the lack mentality. So if you always believe you're going to have struggles and maybe pain in your body or a disease or dysfunction, then no amount of, the good food, the exercise, the stretching, working with coaches and therapists, no amount of that's really going to start to shift that until you shift that core belief. So again, it ties back to the fundamental belief that we talked about. Are you believing in struggle and lack, or are you believing in your potential? And this ties into your unique lens on life. So it's no secret, we all view our life in a different manner. We all view life in a different manner, or, we all have very deeply different beliefs about who we are, what we're here to do, our unique strengths and weaknesses, all that sort of stuff. So it's about being honest with yourself and looking at your unique lens and saying, is this belief system, is it really serving me? And this ties into your belief in a higher power, what's behind all of this. And I'm not going to get into this too much because we could be talking for days and days or weeks and weeks or lifetimes and lifetimes. But what's behind all of it? What do you believe is behind all of this life experience that we're having? Is it random? Is it organized? That's up to you to choose your belief. All right, so now we're going to talk about the idea of mind-body integration. So a lot of the times when we learn things like anatomy, physiology, that sort of stuff, we kind of view them as separate, but really it's one deeply integrated system. So the study of psychoneuroimmunology is the study of the central nervous system and the immune system and how that ties in with the endocrine or hormonal system and the autonomic nervous system. So there's very deep connections between every system in the body, and that comes back to what we talked about with that analogy of the spider's web. You can't really touch one part without it affecting all the other parts. So for example, you could have a change in your endocrine system, so a change in your hormonal levels or your stress hormone, and that's going to shift stuff within the nervous system. This is going to long-term suppress the immune system. So there's all these very intricate, deeply integrated connections in the body. So as we said, there's no real separation between the mind and the body. And you can start to get an idea of this by how we use our imagination and our visualization. So when we imagine, for example, a really good situation or a really good memory, we have changes in the body. Our body feels different. Maybe we'll have changes in our blood pressure, changes in our hormonal levels, our stress hormone. Same with a good or bad situation. If you imagine or remember any really negative or really tough situations you've had in your life, you can have a corresponding change in the body almost immediately. And a nice way to actually start to, or really simple example of how the body and mind are so integrated. If you imagine and visualize yourself, you're about to eat a lemon, like a lemon that's been sliced up and you're about to put in your mouth, feeling what happens within your mouth, with your saliva, all that sort of stuff. So this is a really simple example of how the mind and the body are deeply integrated. In Chinese medicine, there's a very long history of this integration. And if you look into any degree of Chinese medicine, I haven't studied it personally. I've just looked at a little bit here and there. But there's particularly, working with the organ systems as they do, there's different herbs that can help different organ systems. There's different emotions that tie into and are linked into dysfunction or, not quite optimal function of each individual organ system. So you can look into that if that's of interest to you. And then we also know there's heaps of research out there that meditation actually provides really quantifiable and profound results on the body as well. So there's no shortage of this research that's out there. So tying back into the whole idea of mind-body integration, if we have a certain belief, then we may think a certain thought. And with that thought, we might have an emotional, with that, a hormonal type response. And that changes our physiology. So by you believing in, for example, we'll take that example of a scary or bad situation. Maybe you have the belief that bad things happen to me. You have then the thought, okay, if I walk out in the dark, I might get mugged tonight. And you're going to be at a slightly elevated type sympathetic arousal within your body. So you're going to have changes in your physiology. And this can go both ways as well. So say, for example, one example is through food and drink. So if you're not managing your blood sugar well, or you're having too much stimulants or caffeine or something like that, that's going to change the hormonal response in the body and the levels of the hormones in the body. And this can, for example, make us actually feel a bit more anxious in this example. And then that can reinforce the belief, oh, I'm an anxious person. But maybe we need to look at things from both ways. So it's not necessarily just one or just the other, but we need to look at both things. And this is, again, the importance of a holistic approach. So when it comes to body systems and organ systems within the body, the primary ones to focus on are the gut, the liver, gallbladder, the endocrine system, your blood sugar or glucose regulation, and then your cardiovascular systems. So it's kind of beyond the scope of this presentation to break down each of these, but we know how important all of these really are. The gut especially, I'd say the gut and blood sugar regulation, really two absolute massive keys to get right. So yeah, we won't break them down too much, but there's tons of research out there, particularly around the gut microbiome these days and how important that is to get it right. Secondary systems then to focus on are mood, your immune system, the kidney bladder system, musculoskeletal system, the central nervous system in the brain, and then the reproductive system. So the idea behind this is that you'd focus on the primary systems first if you're having problems, try and get this stuff right. And then if you're still having problems in these other systems, then you approach those systems from there. All right, we're about to get a little bit woo-woo. So we're talking chakras and energy centers. So hold on for a minute, grab onto something. I know some of you might get a little bit triggered around this sort of stuff, or maybe you're not quite open to it. That's cool. Just stick with me if you can and just see how some of these themes land. So it's the idea that each of the different areas of the body have different sort of themes and emotions related to it, and different musculoskeletal structures, obviously, as well, tie into each of these energy centers. So in the Hindu system, there's 7 major chakras. And like I said, a little bit woo-woo, maybe for some of you, but try and stick with me just for a minute and just see how this lands for you. Okay, so looking at the first chakra, it's called the root chakra. And it's the idea that in the physical body, it's the spinal area of L5 to S5. So this is your essentially your sacrum and your low back, part of your low back. And what this innervates, these nerves innervate pretty much your whole lower limbs. So your legs, your feet, your knees, hips, ankles. It's the lumbar and coccygeal plexus. These are the nerve plexuses. It does link to the adrenal system. And the idea, the themes behind the root are typically safety and security. And what this means in the modern day environment is money, typically. It's around your physical needs and your physical body as well. And there's also links to your tribe and your ancestry as well. So if you're having, for example, troubles with money or troubles with, you don't feel safe, you don't feel secure, maybe you're in like an unstable type job or an unstable relationship at home or something like that, you can then ask yourself, how is this showing up in my body? Do you have any hip, knee, or ankle problems? Any low back pain? So these are ways that we can be invited to look at our beliefs again, the beliefs behind what's showing up. And then also linked in is our bones and our skeletal structure as well. All right, so the second is the sacral, which is this area around the sacrum. It's T9 to L4. So T9 is the ninth thoracic vertebra around here somewhere. And L4 is in pretty much just above, so the low back there, just above the sacrum. So that area of that part of the spine. It's the lumbar plexus, so this nerve plexus, it's called the lumbar plexus. It does link into our sex organs. It also links into our adrenals as well. And the themes here are around sex and procreation, but also creative energy. So how do you create your life? How do you flow with the flow of life? How do you create your dreams and your goals? And how do you go about achieving them in a creative way? It's also the other theme tied into this area of the body is emotional balance. So you balance within your emotions. Do you constantly find yourself triggered and upset and acting out, projecting upon people? So this is the idea of your emotional balance. And then the bodily type functions related to this part of the body are sexual functions, elimination, and water retention. So the kidneys are on this system as well. All right, third is solar plexus, and this is this area just kind of just beneath your sternum. So it's the idea, the theme of this plexus is your personal power, your self-will. So who are you, your self-identity? What are you capable of achieving? What do you believe you're capable of achieving? And then also the emotional self and the inner child live here too. So the area of the body, T5 to T9, and the organs associated with this plexus are most of the internal organs. So the organs of digestion, assimilation, so your liver, your stomach, your intestines, pancreas, all these sorts of parts of your body, these internal organs in that torso. All right, next, moving up, we're talking about the heart. So this is a really common one that's in our everyday language as well. Like I feel I have a good heart feeling. I love this person. These sorts of ideas. So it's T1 to T5 within the body. So this is the thoracic, first thoracic to the fifth thoracic vertebra. It's the cardiac plexus. So it's the plexus of the heart. And again, the organs of the heart and the thymus. And the themes around this area of the body are giving and receiving love. So do you feel you're worthy of receiving love? What's your relationship like with yourself? Can you practice self-love? And then obviously that relationship with yourself is what's magnified and shown in all your other relationships from there. So key body functions associated with the heart, things like, obviously the heart health itself, but then also our blood pressure and our immune system as well. So are you doing what you love, and what are your beliefs around love? That's some of the major themes around this part of the body. Next one is throat. So the throat, just the area of the throat, it's around communication. So it's around how we communicate. The areas of the body, C3 to 7. So this is the vertebrae within the neck, the 3rd to the 7th. We have the thyroid and the parathyroid plexus, and this links in with metabolism as well. So you could have a look at how's your thyroid function, your overall metabolism. And around communication, it's how do we communicate? Do we say what we want to say? Can we easily and clearly communicate with others? Do we hold words back? Do we hold things in? So these are some questions to ask yourself when it comes to the throat. So next is the third eye, C1 to 2. So it's the 2 uppermost vertebrae, the carotid plexus, the pineal gland, and the pituitary gland. Essentially, the functions within the body linked to this area of the body is our hormonal and physiological regulation. So again, all the hormonal type stuff, the autonomic stuff, it is, the brain is constantly scanning what are the levels of different hormones, different nutrients, different minerals, all this sort of stuff. So the brain's constantly monitoring that. The themes within this part of the body is our intuition, wisdom, creative intelligence. So are we in touch with our own intuition or not, is a question you could ask yourself. Do you see clearly when you're going to take action? And the 7th is the crown. So this is on top of the head. It's around spirituality and your guidance. So where you feel if you connect to a guidance or not, your relationship to the universe or God. It's the carotid plexus, and we have the pineal gland, and the circadian rhythms are associated with this part of the body. So what's your circadian rhythm like? Your sleep-wake cycle, is it healthy? Is it in line with the sun? Is it regular? All right, so some closing thoughts. So there is this very deep integration of the mind-body connection. There's really no denying that. And we have to look at both sides. So we have to look at the mind side, our thoughts, our programming, our consciousness. We have to look at the physical side of us as well. What we eat, how we move our body, all this sort of stuff is deeply intertwined. So we have to manage our stress. Stress management is really, really key through autonomic nervous system balance. And what that means is we're not spending, it's not like you're still and you're static and you never move, but it's that idea that, if we have a little bit of a peak through a workout or a stressful situation, we'll then spend a little bit of time in recovery or prioritize our recovery. So the autonomic nervous system pretty much affects every part of the body, every organ system, muscles, joints, all this sort of stuff. So that's why stress management is so important. And then if we're looking at our physical symptoms, like I said, it allows us to explore the beliefs and the consciousnthe that we hold. So it's that idea that you may be having a certain pain in one area of your body, thinking about what we talked about in this presentation, what's the corresponding emotion? What's the corresponding thoughts that are tied in with that part of the body? And then it allows you to have a starting point to start to explore that a bit more. Okay, thanks for listening. I hope you got a lot out of it.